So my relationship to money before starting Wealthkind was really sitting within like a scarcity mentality. I think as someone who has held, a really steady job and I'm really career driven and really mindful of my money over the years, I think I forgot what it could feel like to actually really enjoy that money and really enjoy it in a place knowing that I've worked hard for it. Secondly, it kind of felt like again, I was being really mindful, but I didn't really have much to show for it that I felt like I could personally hold a lot of confidence and speak to. And I think the third piece is that like I've always been super interested in investing and angel investing, but I never really knew again what that looked like. I just had like little curiosities that I really wanted to dive into those areas, but I always felt again really scared. So I think there was a piece of like feeling like I never had enough to enjoy the good life that money could give you. And then secondly, I didn't know how to have fun with it and really kind of see how that fun could compound into something really incredible. I use the word fun when it comes to my relationship now with money after taking the Wealthkind course because I feel like money really does have this stigma attached to it that either it's something that only a small set of people have, which like is true to a degree, but then there's also a very small percentage, or people have this perception, there's a small percentage of people that know what to do with that money to have fun. And that the fun equates to, big things as well, big houses, big yachts, big vacations. But at the end of the day, when you really tune into exactly who you are and what fun means to you, a lot of times money can just give you those things day to day if you play your cards correctly and if you make the right decisions. And so for me, I really break down money as like being fun because it's allowed me to like tap into areas deeper of who I want to be and where I want my life to feel like. And a lot of that comes down to freedom. So I love that I work remotely. I love that I have a job that can push me to my limitations, but I can like see my career progress in 5, 10 years from now. That is fun for me. And I've put a lot of work into that fun. And then secondly, I've decided to be an expat, which comes, at a different level of conversation for some people because it is taking a massive risk. And financially, it is to some degree, it was really hard. But at the end of the day, I knew that would equate to eventually a life that was a lot more fun than I ever anticipated. Like I live somewhere now that I've always dreamed of living. I surf on the weekends, I road bike, there's sun 365 days of the year. But I've also tapped into so much of my creativity that I would never anticipated. So again, like all of that, I had to make the right financial decisions, like saving to have a lot of fun now. And then I think the third piece is like when I think about growth, like compound growth when it comes to money, again, I never thought it could be so enjoyable to think about what money could do for you in the long term. And I feel like, again, there's this massive misconception that you have to save and that's like a burden because eventually you're going to retire in like 50 years from now and everything is just like it should feel really hard when that's not the reality. If you just make really easy, seamless decisions now, you can have some enjoyment in a couple of years, whether that's for myself wanting to reinvest into other businesses, or reinvest in the stock market or potentially buy a house or two where I can again have a lot of fun. Experience with community with Wealthkind is that it felt like it was a really open space on during like the weekly sessions and then an open office hours. I think the first piece of that is that we're more alike than we are different, and regardless of whatever angle someone's coming from with their relationship with money, at the end of the day we were all there for the same reason, and that was to find like a lot of peace and comfort with that as a conversation, as a topic. And that in and of itself was like really fulfilling, and it was really special to be vulnerable and be like, oh, I'm not alone. And I think for me, because I thought I was really behind, I kind of felt like I finally found like a group of women where it was like a really vulnerable, safe space to kind of share your financial habits or like your current financial situation. And nothing was like approached from a level of judgment. It was just like really celebrated small wins and like helping one uplift one another to become like a stronger version of ourselves with our bank accounts. So that was really special. And then the second piece was during office hours. It's like actually both in the classes as well. Like I think I'm like on this mission. I think just being in the space that I've been in my career for the last couple of years is that like women really should talk about money. We should feel really comfortable like knowing salary expectations, like really defining our worth and like being the not even holding a title of like a breadwinner versus not because it's just money. Fortunately, everyone has to work with. And so I think this was like a first amazing step to be like, women just have to have the conversation more, and we just need to have like the tools to do that. My definition of like money when it comes to relationships, I think in some ways has stayed the same. And I really attest that to my parents who are just like most incredible people. They're immigrants from Poland and they like really built their wealth from the ground up and together. But I think yeah, I grew up in a very, I think, traditional home where my dad very much was the breadwinner. But I would say because of that, my mom was like very persistent for my sister and I to get careers, not when it comes to money, but it was like the topic was always about freedom and independence and like doing something you really love. So money as like a thing was never really on the table. But I think like to that sense, I never grew up in a home that was like one person's going to make more. Like I always just saw it as like we're always going to be equals, which again, I think comes down to my parents. But I would say since the course, like my view on relationships is that that's kind of just like strengthened. Like I think I approach now conversations with friends and with potential partners that I am not like less than. And just because I have a girlfriend who I know will make more money, I don't now feel self-conscious that I'm making less. I there's a good chance I probably know more of what to do with that money, right? Like just because someone on paper has more numbers or zeros doesn't necessarily mean they have more knowledge or expectations. And that was really cool to kind of define and like see for itself. So yeah, I think I've had actually quite a few breakthroughs and they've both been like tangible ones, but then just like spiritual ones as well. I think from a tangible piece, it's like now I just have such a clear, definitive like answer to what my money's doing every single month or every paycheck. And before I felt like everything was always just like a wash. And in my head, I was like, it'll all get figured out. I never have debt. Where I was like, no, you can be a lot smarter and strategic. So I think that's been a really cool breakthrough. And then I think on the flip side, it's this like crazy interest in money doesn't make me like a capitalist. And if anything, it's like unlocked this whole side of myself that I wish I had figured out in my like early 20s when I was going through university. Because truth be told, I would have like completely studied something like I probably would have studied finance and I would have done like economics or something totally different. And that's been not like a massive breakthrough to be like, okay, you don't need to be defined as this like artistic individual. That's okay. We can hold that title, but it doesn't mean that you aren't like a leader and someone that, could have a seat at the table one day making true financial decisions. So my life has changed pretty significantly actually after taking the course and in areas that aren't particularly defined when it comes to my bank account or money. I think now again I have so many tools that have allowed me to continue to like elevate my confidence. And so when I think about my career where right now I think is like the clearest delineation of how I'm going to make money, I won't go into like my next job interview or next potential opportunity without like heavily negotiating my worth. And that I think has been like a massive unlock because before receiving a job offer would have been enough for me because I would have felt like I've already done a great job and I would just have felt proud of getting that job. But now I'm at a position where I've realized I hold a lot of like really key skill sets that are I think pretty attractive in the marketplace right now in tech. And I've never gone to a job offer. I've always just accepted what's been given. And so now for the next opportunity, whether that's like consulting or a new job, like I won't accept anything less than what I know I deserve. And that's really special just to come at it from the other side and be like, oh, I like hold a lot of things that I think set me apart from everyone else. And I'm going to like continue to hone in on that uniqueness because it's going to continue to like allow me to build the life that I want. So my experience being Canadian taking the course, truthfully, came with no uncertainty because for myself, I do work for a US tech company. I just already wanted a lot of that information that I knew the girls or they would be able to provide for me. I would say some advice to the women that have like some uncertainty is that just because someone is working within the US market versus Canada or Europe doesn't necessarily mean they're going to give you different information. At the end of the day, money is like universal in the most like basic and fundamental forms. And so if you want a relationship with how to save and spend correctly and live a life of like freedom when it comes to finances, I wouldn't hesitate, regardless of where in the world Lexi and Delana live. So building my rich life means like it actually feels the same, and the vision of that is exact same from when I started the course. And the only difference now is that I know I'm capable of doing that, whereas before I felt a lot of hesitancy and I was like, that will never happen. Whereas now I know it's like a no-brainer. For me, it is just about like giving other people a really beautiful life and to be able to like ensure that they're comfortable and happy and really safe. I just really envision a life where like I've worked really hard to have a home where my parents can come and visit and they are comfortable and they have their own space, and that I've like flown them out here if they would like to come and visit. And like my money, actually, when I break it down, I never vision it as like building life for me. It's like it's for other people.